Hey everybody, this is Rob from Revelation Rain, continuing this series where we go through each of the songs on our latest CD, which was Day of the Lord, and just do some background on each of the songs. As I've said before, there's 14 tracks on this CD, and so far we've talked about Holy, We Are the Night, and Splitting Hairs, Splitting Atoms. So today we're going to talk about Omega Man. Omega Man was a song that Marti brought in, and it's an interesting story, and this is typical of Marti. So he brings the song in. He had the music all worked out, music and the arrangements. So if I remember correctly, for whatever reason, JT wasn't at that rehearsal. So it's Grant, Marti, and myself at rehearsal, and Marti says he wants to introduce this new song. So we're like, cool. So the three of us start working on this song. We get all the chords down, all the changes, the arrangements, everything's in place, right? So we make a recording of it even so that we have that as reference. And so we think, okay, fine. All we have to do now is put lyrics to it and we'll be all set. Well, we come back a week later for a rehearsal, and this time JT is there. And Marti says to us, well, I changed some of the parts on this song. And Grant and I are just shaking our heads. Because usually what that means, when Marti says, well, I've changed a few parts, what that means is maybe one or two notes remain the same and everything else has changed. Okay, so, and sure enough, that's what it was. The entire arrangement was different. A lot of the chords were different. It was almost a completely different song. I think there was one part that remained the same. So we ended up having to relearn this song. And fortunately for JT, he never heard the previous version, so he was learning it for the first time. Grant and I had to forget everything we knew and start over and learn this song all over again because it had changed, like I said, almost from top to bottom. But that's Marti. That's all right. It was a change for the better in retrospect. It did become a much better song once he refined it and changed the parts. So anyway, we get that learned and we make recordings of it because Marti had said that he wanted me to write the lyrics to it, but he wanted it to be called Omega Man. So it's nice to have recordings that were there when I go home. I have a recording. I can use that as a reference for, putting the lyrics to it. So anyway, he said he wanted it to be called Omega Man, which is right out of the Bible. So that was cool. That's whenever we can write songs that are going to have biblical references, which is like 95% of the time, that makes the songwriting a lot easier because you're just pulling from the Bible. There's no better topic to write about than anything that's in the Bible. So if you know your Bible, then you know Omega, Alpha and Omega comes up in the Bible, especially in the book of Revelation. Okay, so with that in mind, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, how to get from point A to point B. So when I got home and started writing the lyrics, it came together rather quickly. Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, all of this would fit into that song. And the song is a declaration of who Jesus Christ is. He is God in the flesh, okay? If you read the Gospel of John, he talks about the Word. The Word was with God and the Word was God. That's confirmation. In case anybody's wondering or has doubts, the Bible does specifically say that Jesus is God in the flesh. Okay, Jesus is God. Jesus himself made that proclamation there's a whole bunch of things you could talk about where Jesus is proclaiming himself to be God. One, he allowed people to worship him. A good Jew who was not God would not allow that. Okay? Secondly, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, when he said, before Abraham was, I am, that is a direct quote from when God was talking to Moses at the burning bush, and God revealed himself to be, I am that I am. Jesus is taking that and proclaiming that as himself. Otherwise, if that's not a proclamation of being God, why would the Pharisees and Sadducees take up stones to kill him? Okay? If he's just saying something like, yeah, my name's really Pete, well, they wouldn't care. That wouldn't be a big deal. But that wasn't it. So anyway, that's what the song is about. It's a proclamation. It's confirmation Okay, that Jesus is God in the flesh. He was there from the beginning. He was there till the end. In fact, he has no beginning or end because he is God. So that's what this song is about. And it's a statement of our faith. It's kind of a continuation of the song Holy. Okay? And again, in song placement, when you get to track 4, when you have a side 1 that would have 7 tracks, again, you're in the middle point. We talked about that before. You've got track 3 and 4, which are going to fall in the middle. You kind of have to have that up and down, kind of like a roller coaster. You start off strong and you're building up, and then you want to come back down a little bit and then build back up again. And track 3 and 4, back to back, splitting hairs, splitting atoms, and then following that with Omega Man is just perfect. I mean, this whole album is stacked. You could have put these songs just about anywhere, and it still would have been a great album, but song placement is important. I don't care what anyone says. To me, it is. So, anyway, Omega Man, the music was written all by Marti. He came up with the chords, the changes, the arrangement. I don't think once he had that second final version done, I don't think it changed much after that. But it's a great song. It starts off with just this cool bass lick that Marti came up with, and you hear it once more in the middle of the song, right after the guitar solo. It's a nice connecting piece. And to me, I like it because it reminds me of the song Deuce by Kiss. Now, granted, Deuce doesn't start off with a bass lick, but it starts off with that guitar riff that Paul Stanley, ironically, came up with. And you don't hear it again until the middle of the song after the guitar solo. Everything drops out and all you hear is that riff. Same thing with Omega Man. It has that same thing, so that automatically appeals to me. And speaking of guitar solos, it's a great guitar solo. JT is phenomenal at guitar solos, but he starts off the solo, he's just kind of ripping like he usually does. But what's cool is toward the end of that solo, it's starting to mimic in a way what the bass is doing. Because again, Marti's not a lazy bass player. It's no, he doesn't just ride a root note. There's runs, there's ghost notes, there's all these licks and fills. Okay, and it's got the bass is doing something really, really cool during the breakdown section, the guitar solo area. And it's such a cool riff that eventually the guitar comes around to meet what the bass is doing and mimics that, but with, of course, with JT's imprint all over it. It's just a really cool song. The drumming on a song like that, I don't care who you are, that is a complex song to do drums to, because of the way Marti wrote it, with the arrangements, with what the bass is doing. And again, to have that solid foundation, you have to have the bass and the drums locked in. So if you had a slack drummer and you have somebody like Marti playing bass, it's not going to work. The whole thing is going to fall apart. But I remember, Marti and Grant would often meet just by themselves, once a week, just to go over parts. That's how dedicated they were, how determined they were to make sure that everything locked in. And it worked. They would lock in their parts, and the drumming would be on point, the bass would be on point, and then JT would come in and would already be on point. And I tell you, it was just a great process that we had. And when I would come in with the lyrics, again, I take that as a huge compliment and a huge responsibility. I want to make sure that I'm getting the point across, that I'm doing those songs justice, okay? Whether it's written by me or anyone else, we all want it to be the best it can be. So when I put the lyrics to it and I handed out the lyric sheets and everybody's like, yes, this is on point, this is what we're going for, then great, everything falls into place. And I remember when we went in to record, excuse me, when we did that song, I had this last minute idea. And I said, JT, how about on the bridge section, you sing in that, that deep voice that you have, underneath what I'm saying. And it just augments that verse part. The, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We weren't initially doing that. Now, ever since we did the recording, when we do it live, it's like that. But when we recorded the record, that was the first time we tried that, and it worked out great. So that's the story for Omega Man. Again, Marti wrote a terrific song, had the title in mind. We put the lyrics to it, which thankfully they all liked as well. The song came together really quickly once we got the arrangements down. It was the arrangement and some of the chords that were a bit tricky, but yeah, once it all comes together, it's just like, it's solid. And I defy, anyone to diminish or try to take away from any of these songs, really, but especially some of these ones that have some more complex arrangements. Okay. We used to joke, that we were just a 3-chord band. Okay. But, once we got Marti and JT in the band, the songwriting really elevated. Okay. Having 2 other songwriters in the band, such as Marti and JT, elevated my songwriting. So it's nice because it's not really a rivalry, okay, but it's motivation. You hear a song like Omega Man or Splitting Hair, Splitting Atoms, well, that encourages me to want to make my songs better. So, we've never ever looked at ourselves as being in competition with any of the other bands out there, okay? And a lot of those bands are great. We've played with a lot of them. They're great guys, great musicians, great bands. They have great songs. We've never seen ourselves in competition with them at all. We are in competition only with ourselves. Every time one of us writes a song, we want to make sure the next one's even better. And it's not that we're trying to one-up each other. It's just that we're always pushing each other. These are your boundaries. Well, I'm going to push you outside of that boundary. Here's your comfort zone. We're going to push you outside of that. And that's the great thing about Revelation Rain. That's what we do. All of us. And speaking of which, going back to We Are the Night, pushing Grant outside of his comfort zone. He kept telling us, I don't really write. I don't really write lyrics. I don't write music. And then, go back and watch the video for We Are the Night. Grant has a co-write on that, deservedly so. And that's because we're constantly pushing each other outside comfort zones. So anyway, that's the story for Omega Man. Great song, track number 4 on Day of the Lord. Again, if you do not have Day of the Lord, I strongly encourage you to get it. It's available on every digital platform that you can think of. Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, Apple, all the rest of them. It's something like close to 160 different platforms. I didn't know there were that many platforms, but CD Baby distributes to all of them. Or if you're like me and you like physical copies, something something tangible, something you can hang on to, then you can order a CD. We have those available. Just email revelationrainonline@yahoo.com. revelationrainonline@yahoo.com. We'll get a CD sent up to you. $10. 14 tracks, jewel case, 8-page booklet. All the lyrics are there. Good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll be putting another one up before too long. Take care and God bless.